In 2018, I returned from Istanbul to Kashmir to record my grandmother's voice. I didn't return to just eat her food or visit her, but I wanted to record her stories because I had realized that she had started to forget things. So I kept insisting, can we record a story? She kept saying, "Na aznikye, not today, but later." But I was also her stubborn grandson, so I kept persisting. So one day she said, "Okay, I'm ready." This is summer of 2018. And now she says I'm ready after many days of me persisting and insisting on it. She did something that I didn't expect. She wore her best pattern, the woolen robe, and she sat behind a yonder, the spinning wheel, which had fed the family for 70 years. And then she began, in her voice that I had heard since I was a child. She began with a song, One, the songs that Kashmiri women sing at weddings. No one knows who wrote them. They have been in Kashmir for centuries, and no one knows who the author is, but it's still sung at every wedding. She started with the one now, and then she told me a story. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is a story of a wood chopper and Prophet Suleiman. The wood chopper is very poor. So he goes to the Prophet in his court and he says, that he's struggling with money, he doesn't have anything at his home, and he's very poor. So the Prophet obviously is moved by his plight and he gives him a pearl. The wood chopper is happy. He leaves the court, and while he is walking, an eagle comes and takes the pearl from his hand. So the wood chopper is sad, he is disappointed. But he returns to the court of the Prophet Suleiman and he tells him what had happened, and he is moved. So the Prophet gives him a second pearl. So this time he tells himself that I will not leave it, no matter what happens. So he walks and he gets tired and he sits down under the shade of a tree. Because he's so tired and exhausted, he falls asleep. Suddenly, from somewhere, thieves come. They go near to him and they see there's something in the pocket. So they steal that second pearl from his pocket. He wakes up and he's sad and he's crying and he's disappointed that why did this happen to me again? So he goes back to the Prophet Suleiman in his court and he tells him the story. And the Prophet is moved again. So he gives him the third pearl. When he goes out of the court, he is moved by the Prophet's generosity, and he says, this time, no matter what happens, I will not leave it. So he holds it in his hand and he walks. While he's walking, there's a river. So he crosses the river, and just halfway across the river, the pearl slips from his hand and it goes deep inside the river. Remember this third pearl, okay? I'll come back to it later. This is a story that my grandmother told me in 2018. I do not know why she said this particular story. In March of this year, she died. And along with her died the stories that she had never told, the songs that she had never sung, and the memories that were within her, that died with her. What I'm trying to say is that when in places like ours, in places like mine, libraries aren't a certain structure. They walk on two legs, they grow old, and they die. Because much of the history that we have is not really written. It's mostly passed from one generation to another. For example, I was telling you about the one wound. How did it continue from the 15th century to the 16th century? There was no YouTube. So each generation, the grandmother or the grandfather told his son, and then so on, then each generation knew these songs from across centuries. Kosher Sufyan, the Kashmiri Gaon music. No one knows who wrote some of the songs, but they have been played in Kashmir for centuries altogether. The carpet weavers have a certain code. It's called the Talim. It's written by Kashmiris and no one else in the world. No one knows who originated that code and how did this generation also remember that, and the next one, and the next one, and so on. In places like mine, the mouth is the archive. And when somebody dies, something dies with them. I'm not trying to say that when your grandmother dies or when my grandmother died, what died with her was the information. No. It's also the world that they lived in, that they had. For example, what did Srinagar look like in the summer of 1950? What did the lakes and rivers look like before they became real estate? And what did the thunder sound like in the summer of 1977 in Islamabad? When somebody dies, it's not just the facts, that the memories that they had, but also the world that they lived in, the smells of the gardens, the smells of the streets, the texture of the sky, the tonality of people's languages. So everything goes with people when they pass away. Many years ago, we started something. We tried to record these stories. I mean, it's not enough, but we keep trying. Every one of you here has someone in your family. There is a grandmother or a grandfather or an uncle or an aunt who knows something that hasn't been written down. It can be a memory that they have from their childhood. It can be a prayer that they say. It can be a recipe that they have. It can be the way of folding a cloth. It can be how they played the games when they were kids. What you have, no other generation in the history of mankind has had, is the ability to record things. And how do you do that? What is the tech behind it? A lot of you were taking pictures, are still taking pictures before this talk began. That instrument is also in your home. You're taking memories from it. It's your phone. If you have someone in your family, a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a relative of yours, the only thing missing is the record button. Because the world that they inherited or the world your parents inherited is very different from the world you are in. So how do you reconstruct that? And how do you preserve and protect it for the generations to come? It's by hitting the record button. Not just to record the stories of what had happened this day and what had happened that day, but also the environment that they found themselves in. Do you remember the third pearl that I was talking about? So there were three pearls. One, the eagle took it. The second, the thieves took it. The third, he lost to the river. So the woodchopper is sad, and obviously he's gone 3 times to the king, the prophet, and he doesn't want to go again because obviously he's very embarrassed. So what he does is he goes home. His children are crying. And he tells his wife that I tried, but I failed. So this is my favorite part of the story. So the wife, instead of blaming him for being so clumsy, she supports him. She gives him patience. She tells him, okay, now that we have the situation, go to the market, take whatever we have, and try to get something so that we can cook dinner for our kids. So the woodchopper finds some strength in her words, and he walks outside his home, and he goes into the market, and he finds a fisherwoman, And to this fisherwoman, he tells her the story that, her kids are starving, they don't have much at home, and they just have something that he has in his pocket, and he gives it to her, and she's kind enough to say, okay, you can take the fish. So he goes home and he gives the fish to his wife. She takes it to the kitchen, she cuts it open, and there is the third pearl. The third pearl that he had lost while crossing the river was swallowed by a fish, and that fish was caught by that fisherwoman who had put it in that basket, and she gave that very fish to the woodchopper. That's how the story ends. But when my grandmother told me this 8 years ago, I did not realize what she actually meant. So she did not mean that this is the end of the story. There's always a metaphor in stories, in these folk tales or parcha dalil, as we say. What she meant was, what is lost to you, there's always a way to find it back through patience, through courage, and through the act of continuing to cook the dinner when the world had ended, just like the woodchopper's family did. While she was wearing her best pattern and she sat down behind her yonder that her feather family, she ended that story with a prayer. And that is something I want to leave it to you. She prayed for me, for my health, and my well-being. And now I want to give it to you. So, can you play the video? So my objective to come here today was not just to tell you a story, but tell you that there are many stories that are inside your homes of people that you may know and never have given attention to. So what I want you to do is to go home, pick up that phone, hit that record button, and record these stories, because what you have today, you may not have it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.